Hi, everybody, and welcome to a unique Insomnia Insight episode where we have Michelle with us. Michelle, welcome.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, everyone.
And for those of you who don't know Michelle, she was a guest here in a Talking Insomnia episode, sharing her own journey of like how the struggle ended for her. And definitely check that out if you haven't. And now Michelle is becoming a sleep coach. That's super exciting. So super glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So what we're going to talk about today is the wall, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to recognize themselves here. And just a second on like why this episode happened. Well, it was actually because we were having this drop-in class within the sleep coach school in our like group coaching program, and it was like a Zoom style meeting where there was maybe 7-8 people there. And one of the students mentioned that she felt like when she was with her family, her friends, in a nice setting at a party, she was like not there. She just felt even worse off by seeing how other people are having this good time, and she just couldn't enjoy that whatsoever. And then you, Michelle, you shared something that was so profound and so powerful, and you said like, you know, I've experienced this too. It's almost like you have this wall between yourself and other people.
Yeah.
And when you share that and when you expanded on that, like, you know, this student started crying, and I just saw this is so powerful. We have to talk about this, so important. So that's why we're doing this. So we'll start off, Michelle, by just saying, okay, what is the wall? And you can feel free to expand on this and share what your thoughts on this.
Sure. The wall is just this feeling of separation between you and other people, or this inability to connect with people, even those that are closest around you that you would normally be able to connect with quite easily. It's like all of a sudden there's something there preventing that connection from happening. And that's really how I've experienced it and how I see the wall.
Absolutely. So now that we sort of talked about what it is, we'll take a look at like what creates the wall. And we talked about this beforehand. So
Yeah.
I'll share the first thing we talked about was this one, that there may be nobody in your circle experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yes, that's a big one. And I think, you know, it's really difficult to go through insomnia, especially for a prolonged period of time. And there's really this feeling of nobody really understands. And that's painful in and of itself, to feel like you're going through something that even the people closest to you may not be able to understand at all. And that can kind of contribute to that feeling of separation. And then on top of it, Daniel, like we talked about, a lot of the times, because you've been stuck in this cycle of such struggle with your insomnia, right? And you're in that anxiety cycle, that a lot of the times you become so emotionally depleted. And so you can have a lot of emotional heaviness, or what can feel like depression, with you as well. And so, of course, it can be really hard if you're feeling very emotionally heavy or depressed, and you're feeling like nobody really understands your experience. It makes it really hard to then connect with people who are not having that experience at all. And emotionally, maybe they're in a great place and they're kind of just living, quote unquote, normal, happy life. And all you want to do is to be able to connect. And yet you feel like there's a chasm between you because of this wall.
100%. And, you know, what comes to my mind here is that it's such a common thing on this channel when you get a comment from someone who says, oh my gosh, I thought I was alone. You know, and from somebody like myself and a coach that you're becoming, Michelle, you know, sometimes there can be this like, so it can become surprising or confusing to you because you see this all the time. You see this all the time. And how can somebody think they're alone? But it can be because in a bigger picture, you're far from alone. But it is true that in your very circle, there actually may be nobody who's experiencing that. So that really can contribute to this kind of feeling that there's a wall.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you wanted to add something here?
No, I was agreeing. I was saying absolutely. And I know in my experience, there wasn't really anybody in my circle who had ever experienced or who was experiencing insomnia, and certainly not the way that I was. And so I felt so alone and so misunderstood. And it really did impede my ability to connect, definitely. And you certainly don't think it's just within my circle. There's lots of other people who are experiencing this. It really feels like you're alone.
100%. And what we're going to number 2 here, it kind of segues so well, because okay, so we said that the first thing that contributes to the wall is like there actually may be nobody there, and it feels like, you know, you are alone. It does feel like that because again, there's nobody in your immediate circle that is going through it. But also kind of number 2 here, which is the reaction you get, which may be well intended, etc. But that reaction can contribute even further to this wall. You want to expand on that one?
Yeah, and this was a reaction that I would get a lot, kind of almost one of 2 things. And the first is really, really well-intentioned pity for what you're going through. And that makes a lot of sense, right? If somebody that you love is going through something difficult, you know, that can be an automatic response. And it's coming from a place of love. It's so well-intentioned. But if the response you're constantly getting from everybody is really just pity, that can almost, that, you know, it doesn't feel really great. And, you know, a lot of the times the comments that you'll get for people are things like, I don't even know who you're going through that. I'd rather die than experience that. Things like that, where it almost amplifies the pain and the separation, because, you know, certainly most people are not going to come to you and say, oh, well, I've experienced that too, and here's what helped me, or, you know, here's what helped me get out of that or process that differently. There really isn't a lot of empathy or real understanding. It's more pity, which becomes difficult if that's the reaction that you're getting constantly from people over time. Or the other really common reaction that I experienced was just avoidance. And again, very well-intentioned, but I do think that there are people that it will make them uncomfortable to talk about your insomnia, and the thought that maybe you might bring it up or you might talk about it and want to connect on that. And they might not know what to say. They may want to comfort you. They may want to be there for you, but it makes them uncomfortable and they're not really sure how to respond. And so the idea that that could come up makes them uncomfortable. So they avoid you. So they're putting up their own wall to protect themselves. And it's all well-intentioned, but that effect is now you have a wall feeling like it's separating you from people because you're going through what you think is a unique experience. And now they're putting up their own wall because they're maybe uncomfortable hearing about that. And maybe they don't feel equipped to have that conversation with you.
100%. And that was exactly what, you know, I was thinking as you were saying this, like they put up their own wall. Again, from a place where they, of course, and nobody wants to experience difficult emotions, so they want to kind of wall themselves up from that. It's completely understandable. And again, just what you said with this well-intended pity, it's ultimately that, like they are empathetic, but they don't understand. So then there is that wall again. And what I just wanted to add here was kind of like, you know, going a little bit bigger picture here and staying on this avoidance theme, which is like, as humans, we are tribal. We want to belong to community. That's part of our survival instinct. Like we survive the best when we are as part of a group, as opposed to, I don't know, like solitary male elephants. You know, maybe they're flying off alone, but we're not solitary male elephants. So we want to be part of a group. And the thing is that when people in our group, for any reason, maybe you lost your job and you feel like you're different. Maybe, you know, there's some other circumstance that makes you feel different. And maybe there's a component of people starting to kind of avoid you or disassociate from you. That is so difficult because it hurts to us in a way that we feel so vulnerable. We feel like we're being pushed out of the tribe. And that is just so scary. So that's, you know, just another layer of discomfort that comes from that avoidance.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're already in a place where you're feeling those heavy emotions, possibly depression and the disconnect. And then you're going to add on top of that, you're going to layer on feeling possibly rejected by people or avoided by people. So, and that can kind of create a stronger cycle with that those feelings of depression and emotional exhaustion and all of it. So it's hard.
And on this topic, like then it just makes your own wall grow thicker.
Yes.
Because you feel even more disconnected. So
yes. Again, and now you have to protect yourself from feeling more of that.
Yeah.
So you have to stay away actually now more so. So it's it's
And
really
then,
hard.
it is like, I think we kind of already said this. So the third one here, but I think we made a really strong, it's kind of almost uncomfortably strong case for why this wall exists. So I think there's no question about that now. We think we made that case very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And now, switching to like more positive territory now then, okay, a lot of people, I'm sure that are tuning into this, I think a lot of people actually are going to be like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what I felt. So what do you think is helpful when you've experienced the wall?
I think the first thing is just to really know that you are not alone in any of this. This is really, really common, and it can feel like you're alone because nobody else in your friend or family circle is experiencing this. And so you feel very, very isolated, but you're not alone. This is so common. And I would be surprised if people going through insomnia for extended periods of time never experience this. So just know that you're not alone. It's very normal. It's very common. And that, it's just so normal to deal with this, basically. And to know that part of that emotional exhaustion and those feelings of depression that are making you feel like, I'm going through something that nobody understands, a big part of that is really coming from your struggle with your insomnia, as opposed to the actual insomnia. And so what does that mean? It means the anxiety, all the anxiety that you have around not sleeping, the fear of being awake, and the struggle that you're in is really what's creating a lot of that anxiety and a lot of that emotional exhaustion that is going to lead to a lot of that like emotional heaviness and depletion that you're feeling. And so, and Daniel talks a lot about this in his videos, is, it's not even necessarily the insomnia itself. It's your struggle with the insomnia. So the importance to differentiate those two things and know that it is the struggle with the insomnia that leads to the emotional depletion, the depression, and that carrying around of that heaviness. So I think that's the first thing, is to really see that you're not alone and start to understand that it's the struggle that's going to contribute to a lot of this emotional heaviness and those battle scars that are making you feel that you're going through something that nobody could possibly understand.
100%. And, as you were talking, I had this point that I wanted to make that came to me. I'm really happy it did, because, seeing that you're not alone, although there's nobody in your immediate circle that experiences this, super, super helpful. But guess what? If we look at other things that people go through, I think almost everyone has a little bit of a wall somewhere. We all have some kind of vulnerability, right?
Yes.
Some person is struggling with the relationship with their mom. Some other person is afraid of this other thing. And that's their sore spot. That's the thing they don't want to speak about. That's where they have the little wall. So although, you're definitely not alone if you have the insomnia wall, if you will, looking big picture. No, not at all. But even those people in your close, your friends, in that party where you think everybody's happy, right?
Good point.
Everybody has their little wall. So
Absolutely.
You're not alone anyway, right?
No, that's so true. So true.
So it's okay. So you're not alone. Super important. See that the struggle creates the emotional state that wants you to have, like, makes you feel like you need a wall in the first place. Super important. And number 3 here, we talked about, like, when you see this, when you see where it all comes from, then even though the struggle isn't, you haven't kind of abandoned the struggle, you still have some trouble with insomnia, with the feelings, etc. But now that we understand it, perhaps you can actually start to connect with people. You can start with connecting people because you understand why you didn't in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that happened with me. It was understanding it more. And once you start to let go of that struggle, you might be physically really tired, but that feeling of like that emotional heaviness, that depression, that starts to go away. And you can start to put that down a little bit. And then as a result, it just organically makes it easier to connect with people, because you're in a different emotional or mindset type of place. So it can be really helpful once you start seeing, oh, it is the struggle, and start working on that and starting to let go a little bit, that you can start to connect with people a little bit more easily. And if you're in a stage where that's still really difficult, it can really help to reach out to a sleep coach or somebody. Just talk to somebody who does really understand, so that you won't feel so alone, so that you can feel like you are being understood, so that you are connecting. And then the one other thing I'd mentioned, maybe it's not a sleep coach, maybe it's a friend who doesn't have the same experience, but you know that you trust this person and that they're a good listener and that they're going to be compassionate. And that's more than enough. So to even be able to kind of have those conversations with even one person in your life who's going to like hold space for you and hold space for that conversation and attempt to understand your experience can be really, really valuable as well.
100%. So I think we've sort of covered our big picture, and we were talking before how do we kind of sum this up? And we said that, okay, when you understand the wall, your wall starts to disappear, because like anything else in this realm, it really comes from like confusion, mystery, not understanding it, right? And when you just understand, how this is why I've sort of put up this wall, just by understanding it, it's like it doesn't require any action, no intervention, just the understanding and awareness, your walls will start to disappear. Mm-hmm. And as I started typing up something, I was like, when you understand the wall disappears. And then you made a point that we should probably put something like your wall disappears. Why did we do that?
Well, I think one thing I mentioned earlier was that this idea that not only are you kind of putting up a wall or feeling like there's a wall between you, but other people can put up a wall as well, because maybe they're uncomfortable with what you're going through and they don't really know how to engage with it. And so while we can always take down our own wall, we really don't have any control over other people. And so it's very possible that there are going to be people that keep their wall up around you for a while, or I don't know for how long, but it's not something that you can really control. And of course, those would not be the people that you would want to reach out to for having a conversation like I just mentioned, where you're hoping that somebody will listen and understand and hold space. So it's okay if that's the case, but you can only kind of see your own wall and work on that. And if other people keep up a wall, that's not something you have control over, so it's okay.
100%. And that wall that other people may still have, mm-hmm. may be completely unrelated to what you think it is. You may still think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. You never know. That's the other thing. You never know.
And I think, to end on a kind of like nice, kind of like almost, what do you call it? Like utopian note here.
Yes.
Let's do it. So it becomes like, we can only take down our own walls.
Yes.
We can only make our own, right? Or
yes.
Our walls will disappear when we understand it, right? That's the only thing we can do. But if kind of like humanity had all this awareness and understood everything, we're okay with their vulnerabilities, and all humanity would take down kind of their own walls, well, there would be no walls.
I want to live in that world, Daniel.
One step at a time. One wall at a time.
That sounds so good. Yeah.
So I will end there. I think this is this is amazing, Michelle. Thanks so much for sharing this. I think this will help so many people, truly. And anyone out there, leave comments, head over to the website. You can ask questions for open class, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Daniel.